Are you always talking true crime? If you just said yes really loud, as you heard me ask you that, then you've come to the right place, because this is the Always Talking Crime podcast, and I'm Kimi, your host. I've been wanting to do this podcast for a while. Finally did. I mean, literally, I've been thinking about it for 2 years, and I was like so nervous. What if I fail? What if I suck at it? And I just decided, what the fudge? I'm just going to give it a shot. So this is episode 13, I believe, and it's going great so far. Thank you to all of the listeners. Thank you to all of the new listeners. There are so many new countries, so many new states. Guys, like, you have no freaking clue how excited I am about that. And like, I'm just so appreciative that you spend any amount of time listening to any of my episodes. So if you've listened and you're thinking, damn, Kimmy's not too bad for being a beginner podcaster, then you can hop on to my Patreon and show me some support. And you can also gain access to quite a few perks. The first one being you get these episodes earlier. You don't have to wait until Sunday. They will always be available a day before. However, I'm thinking that I might surprise y'all and let this episode be available on the Patreon tomorrow. So actually like 48 hours sooner. If you want more bonus content, there's also going to be a tier where you can get one bonus episode monthly, and there's already one on there for you that I put up there on May 9th. So there's already something like super fun, super awesome, like for true crime. You know, like, it's not super fun and super awesome, but you know what I mean. As a true crime enthusiast, you know, sometimes people just cannot get enough of these stories, and I'm one of them. And hell, that's why I'm doing a podcast. And then the third tier gives you 2 bonus episodes monthly. So take a look at those tiers if you have a chance to jump on. It's patreon.com/alwaystalkingcrime. And you can decide, you know, in what ways you want to support me. And if you just decide that, hey, listening to these free episodes on Spotify or Apple or iHeartRadio or Samsung or wherever the fudge you're like listening to these at, if you think that that is the amount of support that you wish to show me, that is fantastic, and I'm so happy that you're here. So anything extra is just a bonus, right? So today, guys, I have a freaking scary as fuck case to talk about. It was something that's been on my list even before I decided to start this podcast. And I finally decided to do it. Like, I had started research, and then I would kind of get sidetracked with other cases, which, you know, all the cases, you know, are so intriguing and just so like cringeworthy and jaw-dropping and like all the things that we love as true crime lovers. But I decided to go back to this one, and we are going to talk about Elisabeth Fritzl, the girl in the basement. All right, guys. So it is Thursday. I pretty much always record my podcast episodes on Thursday because I do have a job as well as this little side hustle of podcasting. But I'm off my job on Thursdays and Sundays, so it's like a perfect time. Usually my boyfriend's at work, and I have some privacy, which is crucial because it's quieter in the house, with the exception of my 3 fur babies. But I kind of tuck them in for nappy time. So hopefully they'll be quiet unless like I get like a delivery from Amazon or something. But anyways, I have just enough time to do this podcast episode before I have to race out to get my lashes done. I'm getting a new set of lashes at a new place. I've been going to the same place for, I think I started getting lash extensions like 2 years ago. And I'm going to try a new place to see how that goes. It was recommended to me by one of my closest friends who I just love her lashes. So when I was with her, she's just like, oh my gosh, you have to check out my girl. So I got an appointment and I will let you guys know how I like it. So anyways, yeah, like lash extensions are the shit. They saved my life because like really I have shitty and sparse eyelashes, like natural eyelashes. So anyways, let's get on with the story and not talk about eyelash extensions. So anyways, she emerged from complete isolation and anonymity to suddenly have her name plastered across newspapers all around the world. Elisabeth Fritzl had spent a torturous 24 years locked up in the cellar of her Austrian home by her father, Josef. It was there in that dungeon that she endured being raped by her father at least 3,000 times and gave birth to 7 of his 14 children. How's that for a damn introduction, huh? Oh my gosh. So this story is going to be gnarly. So obviously there's going to be some trigger warnings. If you are listening to true crime, I'm sure you are already aware that you're going to be coming across like some like nasty stories, like lots of things that can be triggering to you or other people. So just know that this story, it involves kidnapping, it involves rape, extreme brutality, isolation, just all the things, like all like these terrible things that you can think about, you know, happening to you in your nightmares. Trigger warnings on pretty much all that stuff. So we're going to talk about the father first. And I changed his middle name in my notes. And you guys will get a chuckle over it. But we don't give a fuck what his real middle name is anyways. So here we go. Josef Fritzl was born an only child in Amstetten, Austria on April 9th of 1935. At the time, Austria was under the control of Nazi Germany. Josef's father was a cheat, and he abandoned the family when Josef was only 4 years old. He later died in the war, leaving Josef to be raised by his mother, Maria. And Maria, his mother, beat him severely all the damn time. Maria Fritzl was literally an evil fucking woman, and Josef reportedly had never even been kissed by her his whole life. She called him the devil to his face and never spent time with him unless she was bringing him to church. She repeatedly referred to him as quote unquote an alibi child, since she had only gotten pregnant with Josef to prove to her husband out of spite that she was able to bear children. So apparently Maria had been married before she was married to Josef's dad, and she never conceived a child. So her and her first husband got divorced, and I guess like a subject of contention between them was the fact that Maria wasn't getting pregnant, and her first husband was fucking blaming her and saying that she was barren, so they got divorced. And the joke's probably on that dude, or was on that fucking dude, because he probably went on to get remarried or try to sow his wild oats, other places to try to have a baby. And he probably never even had a kid because he was probably the one that could not have a child. You know what I mean? He was probably the sterile one. So anyways, Maria sounds like a see you next Tuesday type of woman. But she did get the last laugh as far as that concerned, because she did get pregnant with her second husband, and she had Josef. Whether or not that was good, it wasn't good. But anyways, on with the story. Maria Fritzl was also a big fan of the Third Reich. Josef's early childhood exposure to the Nazis taught him to celebrate control and abuse. So yeah, that family, they were winners for sure, right? So just so you know, like, Josef was just exposed to so much, like, terror, but, like, it was celebrated, like his mother, like, thought everything that the Nazis were doing was amazing. So Josef probably felt that everything the Nazis were doing was amazing as well. So later on in life, Josef was very strict and very disciplined. At the age of 21, he married a woman named Rosemarie, and Rosemarie was 4 years younger than he was, and she worked as a kitchen helper. The couple moved into their home in Amstetten in the year 1959, soon after their marriage. The house was a large 3-story older home that dated back to the 1890s. And Josef reportedly had tenants living on the first floor of his house. So he was a landlord, and the house was so large that he could have other people living in there. Josef's mother also moved into the house with them, and their roles gradually reversed, with Josef's mother coming to fear her son. Josef kept his ailing mother locked upstairs in the attic, and he even went so far as bricking up all of the windows so that it would block out every single bit of sunlight. This continued until Maria's death in 1980. And Josef felt that it was a revenge that was well-deserved, considering all of the abuse she had inflicted upon him during his childhood. And he's not wrong, but he's like a monster, but he's not wrong. But that's crazy, right? I mean, it's kind of like it's a karma thing. I feel sorry for Maria, but I don't feel sorry for Maria, because, like, she's the one that raised Josef to be the way he was, and she ended up getting a taste of her own medicine. But because she was so brutal and so mean and abusive to him growing up, like, it just got flipped on her in her old age. I mean, it's sad on one hand, but on the other hand, I just think that, it's a karma thing. So in 1967, at the age of 32, Josef was known to have raped a young woman at knife point in the nearby town of Linz, which was about 45 minutes away from Amstetten. All records of this crime were erased after 15 years, though. So this is kind of crazy, because all he had to do was serve 18 months in prison. And in Austria, I don't know if it's like this right now. So if anybody's from Austria and you're listening, if you want to message me and let me know if you know that it's different or not. At the time, things would be wiped clean from your record after 15 years. I don't know if it was like that for all crimes, but rape being one of them, So he served 18 months in prison, and that's when Josef devised the ideal solution, is what he called it in his mind, to his deranged fantasies for when he would be released from prison, because he had all kinds of, like, nutty fucking fantasies going on in his brain. This was actually when he decided to lock up his own daughter in the cellar to be his personal sex slave. It was while he was, like, sitting in fucking prison for 18 months, which 18 months is not a very long sentence for fucking raping somebody at knife point. So that's insane too. But anyways, he had all that time sitting in there planning what he was going to do to be all, like, deviant as soon as he was released. But anyways, he wanted to live out his evil side while leading a seemingly normal life in the upstairs part of his house. During that time, Josef was also a suspect in 2 other assaults in the area and was said to have engaged in indecent exposure and voyeurism. So I guess he used to be like a peeping Tom and peep through people's windows. I guess there was one lady that was walking or jogging down a path, and he jumped out of the bushes naked, and he exposed his fucking like wiener. I just see him like doing the helicopter. I'm sure he wasn't doing the helicopter, but that's like the first thing that pops in my mind. But like, I like to go walking and running. So like, if I was ever on like a running path and some dude fucking jumped out naked, exposing himself to me, like, yeah, I would fucking punch him in the dick, but whatever. That's just crazy though. So he has a history of doing all kinds of like nut job things. Okay. In addition, he was also alleged to have raped one of his sisters. So I don't know anything else about that. I just kind of found it in some notes on, I think it was on Wikipedia. So don't know if that's correct or not. And it doesn't really even say anything else about any of his siblings or anything. So that may or may not even be true. But I wouldn't be surprised. None of this apparently affected Fritzl's marriage to Rosemarie, though. Josef dominated his wife to the point that he was pretty much able to do whatever the fuck he wanted without any consequences at all. So I don't know if Rosemarie was scared of him. I'm sure, that was probably some of it. If she was like controlled so much, and probably lots of verbal and emotional abuse, probably, physical abuse. There could have been sexual abuse. Who fucking knows? But like, he ruled his household with an iron fucking fist. So she probably kept quiet just to be able to keep the peace and not get hurt. But at the same time, as you continue to listen to the story, you're going to fucking be pissed off at Rosemarie, because Rosemarie either has her head buried in the sand is the most non-observant fucking woman in the world, or she just didn't give a fuck about her daughter, or she was just so scared that she just couldn't do anything. So she just never, ever tried to help her daughter. So anyways, at some unknown point, Josef graduated from a technical college with a qualification in electrical engineering, and he worked at Voestalpine. I'm not sure if I'm saying it right. I think it's Voestalpine, which is an Austria-based steel company. And for a while, he also worked in a mail-order lingerie business, but he gave that up in 1972 and decided to go ahead and buy an inn and a campsite, which was near Salzburg. And I guess that during the summers, like, all the kids would go there and they would work in the kitchen, and Rosemarie would work in the kitchen, and like, it was like this family business. I don't know how long they had it. In any of the notes that I found, it doesn't talk a lot about that. But apparently, like, he was good in investing his money into properties, and everybody knew him around Amstetten as being like a landlord. He had many different properties. Throughout the years, Josef and Rosemarie had 7 children together, which included 2 sons and 5 daughters, one of which included Elisabeth. Elisabeth Fritzl was the 4th child born to Josef and Rosemarie on April 6th of 1966, and everyone who had eyes could tell that she was her father's favorite child. Josef seemed almost obsessed with Elisabeth. He always wanted her to be with him while he went out anywhere and did errands or did any work around the house. He seemed to never want to let Elisabeth out of his sight. And remember, he had already been planning on doing something previously, right? Josef reportedly began sexually abusing Elisabeth in 1977 when she was only 11 years old. Like, yuck. Like, dude, that's your fucking daughter. Like, just so fucking nasty. And I'll never wrap my head around it. Like, incest, I'll never wrap my head around it. But this poor thing, it began as Josef putting pornographic magazines under Elisabeth's pillow, and then he would soon come in and touch her as he masturbated. But after that, it like quickly progressed from there. 4 years after the sexual abuse started, and after completing the required schooling necessary by age 15, Elisabeth started taking a course to become a waitress. But in January of 1983, she ran away from home and went into hiding in Vienna with a friend from work. She had told one of her friends about the abuse that she was suffering at home by her father, and they decided to make a getaway and try to start a new life. Elisabeth also reportedly met a young man during that time, and they fell in love and quickly made plans for a life together. However, Elisabeth was found by police within 3 weeks of running away, and she was returned to her parents in Amstetten promptly. So that poor thing, she was probably having the time of her life away, from her fucking disgusting dad. And, she just gets brought right back there. So, it's crazy that she didn't tell the police, and maybe they wouldn't have believed her. But, that would have been the perfect opportunity for her to report what had been going on, It's been reported that the young man she fell in love with was writing her letters, but Elisabeth never responded. She couldn't respond because she never even received the letters. Josef always intercepted them, and he was wild with jealousy that Elisabeth was involved with someone else. Elisabeth rejoined her waitress course when, she was returned back to her parents. She finished it around mid of 1984, and she was offered a job in the nearby town of Linz. However, there was no way that her father was going to let her leave town or leave him. This seems like the perfect place to put a dun dun dun. But Elisabeth has no idea that her father had started to build that literal fucking dungeon below the family home. How freaking horrific. It was right underneath the entire family's feet. The construction is believed to have been started in 1978, not long after the first time he ever raped Elisabeth. Josef had put in all the necessary paperwork required to obtain a building permit and soon began his renovations. He led everyone to believe that he was building an atomic bomb shelter. The windowless dungeon had electrical lighting, electronic locks on each door, and even a remote code lock on the main door, which Josef, since he was an electrician by trade, he installed it himself. So nobody else from the family was ever allowed in the basement, and Josef frequently referred to it as his kingdom. He seemed to have had absolute control over the entire family, and none of them ever dared to question him. On August 24th of 1984, Josef lured Elisabeth into the basement by having her help him put on the door. And it's this is the part of the story where you're just girl, no, don't do it, run away, say you're busy, whatever. But of course, she went down to the basement to help her dad. She probably didn't want to, but I guess she was the only one home. And Josef drugged her with an ether-soaked towel and locked her up inside the 15 by 15 foot cell. She would not see the light of day again for over, get ready, 2 decades. She was locked up for 24 fucking years. That's insane. Rosemary eventually filed a missing persons report when there was no word from Elisabeth. Her father, Josef, told the policeman who came to the house that he had no idea where Elisabeth would have gone, but that she was likely to have joined a religious cult, and he told the policeman some story that That's what Elisabeth was like talking to him about before. Like, she wouldn't shut up about wanting to join this cult. And this wasn't even true, but, that's what he was telling the cops. To further cover up Elisabeth's disappearance, Josef had forced her to write a letter saying that she moved in with a friend and that she would try to leave the country if her parents came after her again. This letter was postmarked in Brno. I think that's how you say it. I'm not sure. Again, I'm not always awesome with all the words, but that's how I'm saying it. Eventually, the police investigation into Elisabeth's whereabouts would run cold, and before long, the world would totally forget about the missing Fritzl girl. But of course, Josef wouldn't forget. And over the next fucking 24 years, he would make that very, very clear to Elisabeth. During her first year of captivity, she was kept entirely restrained, but afterwards, Josef allowed her to walk around freely inside. As far as the rest of the Fritzl family knew, Josef would head down to the basement every morning at 9 a.m. to draw plans for the machines that he sold. Occasionally, he would spend the night down there, but his wife, Rosemary, would never worry. She was led to believe, brainwashed, that her husband was a hardworking man and was totally dedicated to his career and his family. As far as Elisabeth Fritzl was concerned, her father was an absolute and complete monster. At the minimum, he would visit her in the basement 3 times a week, but it was usually every day. He began to rape her, continuing the nightly visits he had begun when she was just 11 years old. 2 years into her captivity, guys, 2 years into her captivity, like, even that part is terrifying. Like, 2 years, 24 months, like being captive in this dungeon in the cellar with no sunlight. But it gets worse. Elisabeth became pregnant by her fucking dad, though she miscarried 10 weeks into the pregnancy. But 2 years later, however, she became pregnant again, and this time she carried the baby to term. I guess that, Josef, fucking refused to wear condoms, and he said some kind of comment to Elisabeth. She reported later that he didn't want to wear condoms because it took away sensation for her, which is a lie, because it feels the same for women. Like, if a dude's wearing a condom, it's the same. Like, it may decrease some kind of sensation for them, but for women, it's all the same. So he was just a fucking asshole, like we already know, but he wanted to be a bigger asshole and be selfish, and he wanted to feel all the sensations while he was fucking raping his daughter all the time. So, so she got pregnant again. Josef, of course, didn't get Elisabeth any medical care. All he did was buy her a fucking book that was supposed to help her deliver the baby all by herself. And I can't even imagine. Like, I've had 4 babies, and I know that, some of my listeners here are also moms. Like, I cannot, for the life of me, imagine being alone and delivering my baby all by myself. I mean, I could never. And there's so many things that could go wrong, and that's just so scary to me and creepy, and it just makes me shudder, even just thinking about it. In August of 1988, a baby girl named Kirsten was born. So she delivered her own baby girl, Kirsten. 2 years later, another baby was born, and she delivered a little boy that she named Stefan. Kirsten and Stefan remained in the cellar with their mother for the duration of her imprisonment, being brought weekly rations of food and water by Josef. Elisabeth taught them both how to read and write and tried her best to give them the most normal life she could under those terrifying circumstances. Y'all, I'm just drinking water right now, but I feel like I should have poured myself a stiff drink doing this case. But yeah. Let's see. Elizabeth's third child that she delivered all by herself, alone, named Lisa, was born on August 29th of 1992. But this time, Josef decided that there was not enough room in the dungeon for another infant. So he concocted this plan to deceive his wife and the rest of the upstairs family. In order to conceal what he was doing from Rosemary, he staged this elaborate discovery of the infant, placing baby Lisa on the doorstep, swaddled neatly and accompanied with a note that was allegedly written by Elisabeth. The note claimed that she could not take care of the baby and was leaving it with her parents for safekeeping. 2 years later, Elisabeth gave birth to another daughter named Monica on February 26, 1994. And Monica was also taken to live upstairs. Josef used the same lie as before. Rosemary found the baby swaddled on the front doorstep with another note from Elisabeth asking her parents to take care of her. 2 years later, in 1996, twin boys Alexander and Michael were born. I can't even imagine how tough of a delivery that was for Elisabeth to handle all by herself. So there wasn't just one baby, but two. When Michael was born, he was not well. And although Elisabeth begged and begged Josef to take him to the hospital, Josef refused, and Michael ended up passing away after just 3 days. Josef cremated the infant's corpse in the furnace. And not surprising, baby Alexander was found in front of the house on the doorstep with, yep, you guessed it, another note from Elisabeth. Shockingly, all 3 of the upstairs children were approved by local social services as the Fritzls' foster children. In fact, it was reported that the Fritzls legally adopted Lisa, and they were planning to eventually legally adopt the other 2 children as well. Officials had said that Josef Fritzl very plausibly explained how 3 of his infant grandchildren had suddenly appeared on his doorstep. The family received regular visits from the social workers who saw and heard. Like, this is crazy. They didn't see or hear anything in the cellar or underneath the house that would arouse their suspicions. So, I mean, they'd be there regularly. I'm guessing like monthly. I don't think it'd be weekly, but maybe it could be that often. But fuck, like all these people were around and nobody suspected Josef of this at all. It's craziness to me. And what's absolutely appalling is that Josef and Rosemary literally got paid every single month for being foster parents. So he made money off of the kids that he had by raping his daughters. So he raped his daughter and had kids that were also his grandkids, and he is making money. Like, it blows my fucking mind, and it just makes me want to cry. It makes me want to fucking cry for all of them. Well, not Josef, but everybody else involved. After the birth of the first 4 children he had with Elisabeth, Josef agreed to expand the cell from 380 square feet, I can't even imagine, to a whopping 590 square feet. But that fucker made Elisabeth and her children do all the work. Not only that, but he made them dig out the soil with their bare hands, and it took them years to do. Like, what the fuck? I mean, he didn't trust them with any, kind of like digging tools, obviously, because they could have used them as a weapon against him. But like, what the fuck? I mean, it's crazy. It's just crazy to think of people having to do that. Josef set them up with a television, a radio, and a video cassette player. like a VCR. Food could be stored in a refrigerator and cooked or heated on hot plates. The last child that Elisabeth conceived with her father was Felix, which is such a cute name. And Felix was born on December 16th, 2002. Josef believed himself to be a good father to his incestuous family, just because he took them games and celebrated holidays and, birthdays, Christmas, things like that. He celebrated with them. So the crazy thing about him is that he could, how do you say it? He could keep things separate. I can't think of the word right now, but anyways, he when he was with his upstairs family, he never thought about his cellar family, his dungeon family. And when he was down there in the dungeon with that family, he didn't worry about what was going on with the upstairs family. But sometimes Josef would punish the downstairs family by shutting off their lights or refusing to deliver food for days at a time. Josef even told Elisabeth and the 3 children who remained down there, remember there's Kirsten, Stefan, and Felix, he would tell them that they would be gassed if they ever tried to escape. But that was literally an empty threat just to frighten them, because there was no gas supply to the basement at all. But Josef also told them that they would all be electrocuted if they tried meddling with the cellar door. I guess there was many doors. So if you managed to unlock one door to make an escape, there was a second door. If you managed to get through that door, there was a third door. And I don't know how many doors there were, but it was quite a few. And then eventually you would get into his workspace area, which was just all a facade. In case somebody did come down there, maybe somebody from his upstairs family, didn't listen, or if he ever got caught and the cops were doing an investigation, they might never know what was beyond, just his work area, because I guess there was a big bookshelf and everything, and that's where the doors were to go down into where, he was keeping Elisabeth and the other kids hostages. It is not known how long Josef intended to keep his daughter captive in his basement. I mean, he had gotten away with it for 24 years. And for all the police knew, he was probably going to continue for another 24 years. However, mercifully, in 2008, one of the children in the cellar became ill. It was Kirsten. Elisabeth begged Josef to allow 19-year-old Kirsten to seek medical attention. She begged him to bring her to the hospital. Kirsten had fallen rapidly and critically ill, and Elisabeth was just beside herself with worry. Grudgingly, Josef agreed to take Kirsten to a hospital. He removed Kirsten from the cellar and called an ambulance, and he claimed that he had a note from Kirsten's mother explaining her condition. So he had Elisabeth write another one of her fake notes, okay? So for a week, police questioned Kirsten and asked the public for any information on her family. Because when Kirsten got to the hospital, none of the hospital staff could fucking figure out what was wrong with Kirsten. She had a vitamin D deficiency. She was super pale, super malnourished, scrawny. She probably looked like death. So, they had called the cops, thank God. But naturally, no one came forward, as there was no family to speak of. The police eventually grew suspicious of Josef, though, and reopened the investigation into Elisabeth Fritzl's disappearance. Yay! They began to read the letters that Elisabeth had supposedly been leaving for the Fritzls. Every time she dropped off a baby, supposedly there was a note. They started rereading all those, and investigators began to see the inconsistencies in those letters. Whether Josef finally felt the pressure or had a change of heart regarding his daughter's captivity, the world may never know. But on April 26th of 2008, Josef released Elisabeth from the cellar for the first time in 24 years. She immediately went to the hospital to see her daughter, where hospital staff alerted police to her suspicious arrival. Like, everybody was probably like, what the fuck? Like, where did she come from? She's been, missing for all these years and just dumping off her kids, And I'm sure, like, the cops were probably suspicious of her doing something. They thought that she was in a cult and everything, but, I'm sure there was a lot of suspicion that she was doing something, bad to Kirsten, and that's why Kirsten was hospitalized. So Kirsten herself had understandably been put into a medically induced coma, but Elisabeth and Josef were able to speak with the doctor when they got to the hospital. Elisabeth was almost immediately taken into custody to be questioned about her daughter's illness and her father's story. And for the first 3 hours of questioning, Elisabeth didn't want to talk to the cops. She didn't give them any kind of information. I'm surprised that her Stockholm syndrome was not worse than this, but after making the police promise to her that she never had to see her father again, Elisabeth finally told them, after 3 hours of silence, the tale of her 24-year imprisonment. She explained to the police how her father kept her in a basement and that she had bore 7 of his children. Gross. She explained that Josef would come down during the night, make her watch pornographic films with him. Oh my gosh. And then he would rape her in front of the kids. Because remember how small, even when it was expanded to like 580 square feet or whatever, like, that's still, like, super fucking small. So he was fucking raping her, like, in front of the kids. Elisabeth also explained how he had begun abusing her when she was 11 years old. So, of course, the police arrested Josef Fritzl that night. I remember when this story came out, and just being, like, appalled. I could not believe it. And I'm going to be posting pictures on Patreon as well as my Instagram. That's really the only social I use right now. I'm starting my TikTok. I'm starting to use that a little bit more. But I will be posting pictures. And just when you look at Josef Fritzl, he is so fucking disgusting and nasty. And just the thought of all the incestuous things that he had done and the way he treated Elisabeth, it's just, there's really no words for it, but thankfully he was arrested. I can't imagine all, the kind of life that she had to put up with, and the kids too. But after the arrest, the children in the cellar were also released, and Rosemarie Fritzl fled the home entirely. She had allegedly known nothing about the events taking place right under her feet, and Josef did back up her story. Like, he told the cops that my wife Rosemarie had no idea that I was doing this. The tenants who had lived in the apartment on the first floor of the Fritzl home also never knew what was happening, like, right underneath them. Josef had explained away all sounds by blaming faulty piping and a noisy heater. And of course the tenants, believed him. The trial of Josef Fritzl began on March 16th, 2009, and was presided over by Judge Andrea Humer. On day 1, Fritzl entered the courtroom attempting to hide his face from cameras behind a blue fucking folder, which he was entitled to do under Austrian law. After opening comments, all journalists and spectators were asked to leave the courtroom, and that's when Josef finally lowered the binder from his face. Josef pled guilty to all charges with the exception of murder, and grievous assault by threatening to gas his captives if they disobeyed him. So he, would not admit to those things. In his opening remarks, Rudolf Mayer, the defending counsel, appealed to the jury to be objective and not be swayed by emotions. He insisted Josef was not a monster, stating that Josef had even brought a Christmas tree down to his captives in the cellar during the holiday season. So, did you hear just what I just said? So, he told the jury that Josef was not a monster because Josef had brought a Christmas tree down to the basement to celebrate Christmas with the captives that he had locked up down there. So, yeah, that makes him not a monster, right? Right. I don't understand how attorneys like this can defend criminals like this. This dude had to have known that Josef was guilty of all these nasty fucking things. And I don't know. I don't think that, I know that everybody's entitled to, a fair trial and everything. But personally, I don't think that I could do that as a job. If I was an attorney, that's not the type of, I could never be a defense attorney for anything like that. I just couldn't. Morally, I would never be able to forgive myself for, helping get people, off or, lighter sentences than they deserve. So, all right, let's move along with the story. Christiane Burkheiser, prosecuting her first case since being appointed chief prosecutor, pressed for life imprisonment in an institution for the criminally insane. She demonstrated for the jurors the low height of the ceiling in the cellar dungeon by making a mark on the door to the courtroom at 174 centimeters, which was 5 feet 8.5 inches high. And she described the cellar as damp and moldy. When she passed around a box of musty objects that was taken from the cellar, the odor even made all the jurors flinch. On the first day of testimony, jurors watched 11 hours of testimony that was recorded by Elisabeth in sessions with police and psychologists in July of 2008. The tape is said to have been so harrowing that the 8 jurors did not watch more than 2 hours at a time. They just couldn't stomach it. There were 4 replacement jurors, too, that were on standby, ready to replace any of the regular jurors in case they could not bear to hear any more of the evidence. I can't imagine having to listen to all that and, comprehend that all these fucking things actually happened to Elisabeth. And besides the video testimony, Elisabeth's older brother, Harold, testified, and he said that he was physically abused by Josef as a child. Rosemarie and all of Elisabeth's children refused to testify. On March 18th, 2009, Elisabeth attended the second day of the criminal trial against her father in preparation for a book she wrote about her ordeal. And I didn't read that book. I think I want to, but yeah, I have not read it yet. I keep hearing a lot about it, during my research and everything. But yeah, I would like to get some more insight on how she dealt with all this and how her life is going now in the aftermath. But she did not plan to see her father again, but she did show up. Josef's attorney confirmed that she had been in the visitors gallery in disguise at the time of her video testimony being aired. Josef recognized that Elisabeth was in the courtroom, and from that point on, Josef suddenly became pale and he broke down. It was a meeting of eyes that changed his mind. And the very next day, Josef began proceedings by approaching the judge, and he changed his pleas to guilty on all charges. On March 19th, 2009, Josef Fritzl was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole for 15 years, which is not nearly harsh enough. He said that he accepted the sentence and would not appeal. Josef is currently serving out his sentence in Garston Abbey, a former monastery in Upper Austria that had been converted into a prison. In May 2017, Josef Fritzl changed his name to Josef Meyerhoff and has shown absolutely no fucking remorse for all of his heinous crimes. In April of 2019, it was reported that Josef's health was declining and that he didn't even want to live anymore. Like, dude, nobody wants you to live anymore. Trust me. In early 2022, which it's 2022 now, so just a few months ago, the Regional Court of Krems in Lower Austria decided that it would move Josef from a special unit for the criminally insane to the regular prison system. This in turn would mean that after having served 15 years of his sentence, he would be able to apply for early release. The public prosecutor's office was opposed to this plan, thankfully, and immediately appealed the decision. The higher regional court had appointed an expert to examine Josef in an effort to determine his psychiatric and neurological condition after more than 10 years in prison, much of which was spent separated from other inmates. I mean, I guess like he got beat up by one inmate before and had a bunch of teeth knocked out, which was well deserving, but then they kept him separated from everybody. Josef is reportedly suffering from dementia now and is eligible for release in 2023, which is fucking scary. But it's unlikely that he will be released. Just because it says that he's eligible doesn't mean that he will. If he were to be freed, he would have been kept in detention for much less time than he held his daughter Elisabeth prisoner. So most people who watched this awful story unfold wondered how Elisabeth would ever manage to put the pieces of her life back together, especially in the glare of the world's media. But just as Elisabeth managed to survive against the odds, keeping her sanity and caring for her children in those horrific circumstances, she also surprised many by overcoming her ordeal and finding happiness, which is so awesome. Like, Elisabeth is a fucking badass bitch. After she was finally rescued in April of 2008, Elisabeth needed as much resilience to face her life in freedom as she did to survive her decades of captivity. She was placed with her 3 cellar children under the care of a team of social workers, therapists, and psychiatrists at a clinic outside Amstetten, and that's where she lived in hospital rooms. Her and the kids lived in these hospital rooms that was overlooking trees and had a wide lawn. I mean, it must have just looked so beautiful to them, you know? Felix was reported to have spent much of his time stroking the grass on the lawn in sheer wonderment. The clinic's chief physician at the time had remarked, for them, a passing cloud is a phenomenon, which is so true because, like, these kids had never seen daylight. So for them to even, like, feel grass and look up at the sky and see a cloud, like, that would be insane. And remember, like, Kirsten was like 19 years old and had never seen daylight. So that had to have just been so crazy and probably overwhelming for them too. Soon after her release, Elisabeth started to develop an obsession with cleanliness, and she was showering up to 10 times a day, according to reports. It was also revealed that Elisabeth and her children were more traumatized than anybody could have previously thought. During captivity, Kirsten had tore her hair out in clumps and was reported to have shredded her dresses before stuffing them in the toilet. Stefan could not walk properly because of his height. He was 173 centimeters tall, which is 5 feet 8 inches, but it had forced him to stoop. Oh, you know what? I think that I had reported earlier that the dungeon was 5 feet 8.5 inches, and that was not correct. It's 5 feet 6 inches. So it was like 2 inches smaller in height than Stefan was. So he was 5'8", and the cellar was only 5'6". So he always had to like walk all stooped and hunched over. Like, oh my God, I can't imagine. It also has been revealed that normal everyday occurrences such as dimming of lights or closing a door plunged Kirsten and Stefan into like major anxiety, and they had panic attacks. The other 3 of Elisabeth's children, who were raised by their father in the upstairs family, were being treated for anger and resentment at the course of the events. Elisabeth was given a new name following the trial, with strict laws, which this is awesome. There's strict laws to prevent her identity from ever being revealed. She now lives with her 6 surviving children in a brightly painted house in a tiny hamlet in the Austrian countryside, which also cannot be identified, and it's only referred to by the country's media as Village X. All of Elisabeth's children have developed normal sibling relationships with each other, and after having trouble dealing with the traumatic events, the 3 upstairs children slowly began recognizing Elisabeth as their mother. The children enjoy being outdoors, playing video games, and spending time with their mother and grandmother. Despite their strained relationship, Elisabeth and her mother, Rosemarie, began visiting each other more, and I guess Elisabeth's reportedly forgiven her mother for believing in her father's story. I don't know, like, she is super forgiving if she's able to do that, because that would be a hard pill to swallow, you know, thinking that her mom didn't have any idea. And she probably didn't, but, like, I'm glad that they have a good family dynamic now, and I'm glad that everybody's healing, but man, that would be super, super difficult to do, for sure. The children who are now aged between 17 and 31 years old, they sleep in rooms with doors permanently open after undergoing weekly therapy sessions to eliminate any of the traumas that they suffered inside the cellar. So no doors can be closed. Their 2-story family home is kept under constant CCTV surveillance, and it's patrolled by security guards constantly. If there's any stranger caught lurking nearby, they can fucking expect to be picked up immediately by the police. Like, literally within minutes, they're going to be plucked right up. And in 2009, it was revealed that just a year after she escaped captivity, Elisabeth found love with a guy named Thomas Wagner, who was a bodyguard with the Austrian firm A&T Securities, and he had been assigned to protect her. Thomas, who is 23 years younger than Elisabeth, moved to live with her and her family. So now Elisabeth is a cougar. You go, girl. One of the team of psychiatric carers revealed that the romance has helped Elisabeth overcome the traumas of her past, leading her to radically scale back the therapy that she was undergoing for post-traumatic stress disorders. The psychiatrist had said that, you know, this is vivid proof of love being the strongest force in the world. With the approval of her doctors, Elisabeth has ceased psychiatric therapies while she continues to move on with her life. She's learned to drive. She helps the children with their homework. She makes friends with the people in Village X. She lost the best years of her life in that cellar, but Elisabeth, is determined that every day that's left for her to live will be filled with activity. Another source close to the medical team that still monitors the family also recently added that it may seem remarkable, but they are still together. Thomas has become a big brother to the children now. Elizabeth's relationship with her mother, like I said, Rosa Marie, it was difficult to repair. Elisabeth said that she did find it difficult to believe that her mom had no idea she had been imprisoned, literally underneath her feet for all those years. Rosemary reportedly fled the home she shared with Josef soon after the whole scandal broke. But like, it sounds like, she's spending time with her daughter now and her grandkids, and, they're having like a healthy relationship and moving past it. I guess now that Rosemary tries to supplement her meager pension by selling homemade bags and paintings of flowers. So guys, what do you think of that story? Pretty amazing, right? I mean, the resilience of Elisabeth and her 7 children. She's an amazing woman. They are all amazing people. Let's all wish them the best in a happy life. I can't imagine going through anything like that. I can't imagine being held captive and being raped by my dad or anyone for even a day, much less 24 years. And for her, I mean, it really says a lot. Like, if you kind of think about anybody in your life that likes to use excuses of their past, things they've been through. They have PTSD. I mean, I know I get PTSD from some of the domestic violence I've been through, some of the childhood things that I've been through. I've known people that use all these things as excuses to why they cannot have a happy life. And right here, Elisabeth is proving that is fucking bullshit. It doesn't matter what you go through in your life. Like, you can still be positive. You can still have a happy life. I am glad that she is protected. I am glad that the media cannot bother her. The whole family, they refuse to do any kind of interviews. I mean, she did write the book, but they are not interested in talking to any media whatsoever. I can't wait to see in 2023 Josef be denied any kind of release. Let's all pray that happens. It's like I said, it's very unlikely that they're going to let that fucker go. Plus, he has dementia, so he's probably going to be dead soon anyways. I mean, he was an old fucking dude when he got caught. I mean, just the fact that he's still alive, breathing oxygen, really pisses me off, but it is what it is. So I'm sure he will be burning in hell for all eternity. And for those of you who believe in that too, high fives. Yeah. Huh. So let me know what you think of that, either on Instagram or message me. Let me know what other cases you want me to do. I have a little list here that I'm working on, but I really want to hear from you listeners to see if there's any longer stories you want to hear. Do you want me to do some well-known things? Are there any cases that maybe in your area that you would like me to do? I don't know if you guys want me to do 2 or 3 part cases, or if you just like these one case per episode, but let me know. Let a girl know what you guys want to hear about, because I'm all about making you happy. Again, my email is alwaystalkingcrimepodcast@gmail.com. Remember the Patreon, which is patreon.com/alwaystalkingcrime. Go check out those tiers. Get yourself some weekly early releases of the episodes. Get yourself some extra content, because guys, there's going to be 2 extra episodes, full length episodes. I'm not talking little mini episodes. I'm talking full-length episodes. Probably I'm like saving my best work, my best content for the Patreon. And eventually I'll probably start doing some live stuff and some polls and things like that. But this is like I said, it's all new to me. But yeah, I really want to build like a really fun community with us. Already on Instagram, I'm chit-chatting with so many of you. Please continue to share this. There is a post on my Instagram that shows this really awesome Always Talking Crime Tumblr that I am going to give away to somebody. But you have to follow me. You have to follow me personally. You have to follow the Always Talking Crime Instagram page. You have to tag 2 friends, and then you have to share the post to your story. So it's really pretty freaking easy. Spread the word. Maybe you're going to win that tumbler. I'm not sure when I'm going to do the drawing, but I'm super excited about it. It's super red, sparkly, and it has my logo on it. I'm also starting to create some other artwork, so maybe we're gonna get like some tank tops for summer. I'm putting together some koozies, maybe some stickers, but all kinds of cool stuff is gonna be happening. So thank you for always supporting me. Thank you for like sharing with your friends. Yeah, I mean, like I've already said, it means so much. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please go ahead and click the follow button. I think you can click the follow button on everything, but you can also give me 5 stars. Wouldn't that be nice of you? And on Apple Podcasts, you can even write a little review if you would be so kind. And what that does is it's going to boost this podcast in the algorithms, so it's going to help this podcast be seen by new listeners, like other people who are listening to some of the other true crime podcasts that, they're waiting for their favorites to come out with the new weekly episode, and they might look around and be like, well, what the fuck else could I listen to in the meantime? And yay, they can find us. So thank you. I'm going to let you guys go. I need to get to my lash appointment. But like always, guys, keep talking crime.